Thank you. Chair now recognizes the ranking member, Ms. McBath, for her 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Fox, as you know, minorities and members of marginalized communities often face barriers to accessing legal resources, including legal representation, knowledge of their rights, understanding the legal system, or the means to navigate a really complex legal system, and making them far more vulnerable to unjust prosecution and punishment. Can you kind of just expound a little bit with us today and explain how over-criminalization exploits these disparities?
Yeah, sure. So if you look at, the federal inmate population, right now it looks like it's about 156,000 people. That's a lot considering that the federal government actually doesn't have that much jurisdiction over crime. It's mostly quintessential state law, so there's a lot there. If you look, it's 35% black when the population's 14% black, 31% Hispanic when the population's 19% Hispanic. A lot of these laws, it's just, they want to go after people that have limited means, that have less resources to fight back, so that way they, they're able to sort of go after, people that they think are easy targets. And as was mentioned earlier, a lot of the people that are in federal prison are low-level, drug offenders, nonviolent drug offenders. These are not people who actually need to be incarcerated, who need to be in the system. We spent about $182 billion over the course of a year incarcerating 2 million people. And frankly, all this does is undermine people's trust in the system. There are, jurisdictions in certain cities in the country where the clearance rate for violent crimes is at or near zero. I think everyone wants violent crime solved, but when you're harassing people over things that most people would agree shouldn't be crimes, you sort of undermine the legitimacy. People are not willing to call the police. They're not willing to testify for the prosecution. When there's a lot of these communities, DC being one of them, that are both over-policed and under-policed at the same time, meaning that there's a lot of officers per capita, yet the crime rates are still pretty high because the arrests are for low-level offenses that people just really don't want to be involved with.
Thank you for that. And Mr. Tolman, how does the investigation of minor crimes reduce the effectiveness of law enforcement personnel and prevent them from addressing violent crimes? You kind of touched upon it a little bit earlier, so if you could spend a little bit more time telling us about that.
Yeah, we are not using our resources for the most important crimes, the crimes in which we need to be afraid of an individual rather than just mad at an individual for what they did. It's ironic that the one particular AUSA was referred to by Mr. Fox earlier. I actually had a case against him, and it was an individual who owned an aquarium that brought in the wrong type of fish and was saddled with a federal felony. Did not know that he brought in the wrong type of fish, and the paperwork was one of the issues. That happens every day in this country. We can talk about the crimes that are not being, that we laugh at. Many of those crimes are being used by bureaucrat prosecutors. I'm very proud of the work that I did, but the number of cases that I wish were actually aimed at the violent individuals in our communities. We've stopped working and being part of gang task forces across this country. We've limited the use of the federal resources on sex trafficking and human trafficking. We've got to get back to being good partners to our state police and law enforcement officers who have the primary responsibility on violent crime.
Thank you for that. And then also, can you kind of explain how statutes that were meant to target our kingpins, like you just said, violent crime, like the mandatory minimum drug statutes that we have yet to meaningfully reform, that's easy for me to say, how they end up sweeping in the low-level offenders?
Well, absolutely. We are in a really backwards system right now. We are using oftentimes higher level individuals in a drug distribution ring to cooperate and get credit against lower level individuals. I prosecuted many drug cases, and we rarely ever were able to get intel on the upper levels and actually take down drug conspiracy rings. Instead, we utilized what we could in order to get low-level individuals who simply did not have the knowledge, and we didn't take the time or the patience because we didn't have the resources to investigate those conspiracies and those drug rings and cartels properly.
Okay. Thank you so much. I yield.